Hi, Sandra Nicoline
Hey
Nielsen.
Alicia, how
Hi.
are you?
I'm good, thanks. It's been an exciting and interesting few days. Right, so I'm going to play the video that you've produced for us, but I'm particularly interested in what you have to say because you sort of started out working with a project space that I'm also quite familiar with through the Berlin Art Prize, the Institute for Androtic Research in Berlin Neukölln. So you know the scene, you know what's happening here, you know what the issues are and what the questions are. And what I particularly appreciate about your approach as a techno-anthropologist, as well as in the video, is that you're not just looking at one part of the system. You're really looking at a societal, or at least is my impression, at a societal or structural whole, and critiquing and examining that system. So it's not just materials, but it's also activism and local production as well. So I'm going to play the video that you've provided for us, and then anybody during the video, feel free to add questions to the chat. If there's questions, this is a talk about circular design, which is a little bit different from Kim, who touched on materials and circularity. But yeah, we'll have a chance to ask you those questions after the video.
Hey, I am Sandra Nicoline Nielsen. I'm a techno-anthropologist by education. Techno-anthropology is about looking into technological development, product development, organizational development, and informing these processes with human insights. During my education, I specialized in circular economy, which I have been working with for the last 4 to 5 years. So I am the co-founder of a material collective called Hands.on.Matter. It started as a workshop series in Neukölln in the summer of 2018. At the Institute for Androtic Research, Tim van der Loo and I facilitated different workshops and events with the focus on one material at the time. We wanted to bridge the knowledges between artists and designers that are often very separate spheres, even though there is a lot of common denominators. Since then, hands.on.matter has grown into different publications, new research projects, and exhibitions. We moreover try to create a collective platform where senses intuitively can be activated through practical workshops for everyone to engage in. So this is an element that we all the time always try to integrate or implement. And yeah, we primarily work with post-consumer and organic materials. Last year, I kind of went in a bit different direction and started a design studio called A New Kind of Blue, which is also based here in Berlin. And here we try to rethink the notion and aesthetics of, in particular, recycled textiles for fashion. So in this video, I will give a basic introduction to circular economy and the design principles behind circular economy or systemic design, and how these relates or can be related to practices in the arts and the culture scene. So yeah, hope you will like it. Welcome to this short introduction to circular economy principles and their relevance for artists and cultural workers. How we relate to our world and the objects within it comes down to our norms and our values. In that sense, sustainability is a culture. At the moment, our current capitalist society has formed the infrastructures we live our daily lives in. And in these, we implicitly see the values our society emphasizes the most. These structures are formed by a culture of disposability and acceleration. Our economy is structured after the idea of limited resources, but in this day and age, they are very limited. If we take a look at the products we use on an everyday basis, plastic bags, packaging, phones, and other technological devices, furniture, and machines, how are they designed? Packaging is made for a single use. We use it once, and then it's broken and unusable. For technology, a lot is made not to last. Many devices are simply designed for expiry, for planned obsolescence. Other traits we see in the things we surround ourselves with are low quality, composite materials, very specific purposes and usages that together stimulate more and more consumption and throwing away. The fact is, there is no away. Simply put, recycling is wish cycling. If we look at one of the most recyclable materials like aluminium, every recycled kilogram of aluminium saves 8 kilograms of bauxite, 4 kilograms of chemical products, and 14 kilowatts of electricity. So yes, a lot is saved. But with a recycling potential of 90%, we still lose 10% every time we recycle a can. And this is a gold example of the glorification of recycling, aluminium. So let's not think about all the other things we use and throw away directly and indirectly on a daily basis. The good thing is that there are many steps to take before recycling, which we will get into. But first, I would like to add a critical note to the circular economy. It is an approach based on sustaining the capitalist monetary system we have today. Circular economy is a systemic model that has gathered information from different disciplines like ecological economics and cradle to cradle in an attempt to conceptualize the integration of economic activity and environmental well-being. When that is said, its strategies are accessible on different societal levels. Individuals, companies, institutions, and governments can all adopt the principles of circular economy. This is its strength, but we have to carefully ensure its ethical, social, revolutionary, or disruptive aspects, because that's also needed. Overall, circular economy offers a framework to make more clever and resourceful decisions when it comes to design, organization, planning, and so on. And the framework is so general that every field can find inspiration to become more sustainable, also the arts. Our current systems are linear, meaning that companies do not incorporate waste as part of their processes and resources. Products are created without any consideration for a product's end life. Linear production systems rely on the extraction of raw materials, which uses up the Earth's resources, expels more carbon, and contributes to climate change. This model, which is coined linear by the circular economy, shows very clearly how the end life of a product is not thought into the process. It is simply the ending point, which has become the starting point for circular economy. The circular economy is a system solution framework that tackles global challenges like climate change, biodiversity loss, waste, and pollution. The idea is to transform every element of the take, make, dispose system, how we manage resources, how we make and use products, and what we do with the materials afterwards. Instead, circular economy refers to the 4 R's: rethink, reduce, reuse, recycle. Rethink asks if it's possible to limit the use of resources already from the beginning, like in the planning of a design process or project. Reduce limits the use of virgin materials as much as possible. The next 2 R's follow in line with this thought. Reuse is about keeping the materials in the same system for as long as possible. When the material quality is compromised, the materials can be introduced into other systems to make other products. This is recycling. In circular economy, products and used materials are reintegrated into the cycle after end use as input in a new process. The 3 bearing principles of circular economy are designing out waste and pollution, keeping products and materials in use, and regenerating natural systems. So here's the butterfly diagram from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation that has a lot of resources to dig into numbers and understanding the current economy and its transition into a more circular one. The butterfly diagram shows how to keep products, components, and materials at their highest value at all times. To do so, it's helpful to distinguish between two cycles. The technical cycle to keep man-made products, components, and materials in circulation for as long as possible, using strategies of sharing, maintenance, reuse, redistribution, remanufacturing, and in the end, recycling. One example from the technical sphere is car sharing. There are many more. In the biosphere, the strategy is to restore nutrients while building natural capital, like biodiversity to restore water, soil fertility, minimizing use of chemicals, and irrigation systems. One example from the biosphere is the return of food waste. Ultimately, it's about getting the most value from the resources we have. All of these strategies take water usage and energy consumption into consideration, like basing energy on renewables. The main point to go forward with is to emphasize that there is a hierarchy in how we handle materials and resources. First of all, we have to use less. This comes before anything else. Then comes reusing, sharing, which includes reselling, donating, lending, and to give away, refurbishing, repairing, and then comes recycling. Hereafter, inevitably, the last steps is incineration for heat and electricity, and in the end, the landfill. Recycling also is not just one thing. Recycling is to regain raw materials from an old product and make a new one out of it, like glass bottles and the fund system. Upcycling is to convert a low-value material into a high-value product, or restoring value by changing the look or function, like creating a bed out of Euro pallets. Downcycling is to lower the quality. An example is single-use products like painting carpets that are made out of mixed materials, or plastic in their glue, and different types of textiles. After this, you can't do anything with it. So, what can you do? Ask what is supposed to happen after the exhibition, after the performance, after the event, with the walls that have been constructed, with the things that have been purchased and made. Are there any alternatives? Prioritize and be conscious of the choice of materials that can be repurposed and recycled. Monomaterials and design for disassembly is to favor in contrast to composites and complex installations. Can you employ waste or repurpose materials that are taking dust in yours or someone else's studio? Is what you need possibly a waste product or in excess for someone else? Think beyond the resources of the art world and do not be afraid to contact different companies like supermarkets, manufacturers of different sorts, food producers, restaurants, and so on. There are so many resources just around us. And also a lot of people actually want to help. This adds also another layer of being socially involved and embedded in the geography of where you work. Be aware that this requires more work and more time, and it also involves a higher risk level because there are no guarantees of the supplies. But it feels really good and meaningful when it works out. Then, of other sources that are made for sharing, there are platforms like Kleinanzeigen and many of these types, and also material banks like Material Mafia. It is good to find ways to support and become an active part of these models. Bear that in mind. Then there is A-Gain guide that I would like to quickly mention because they just launched a digital platform called Loop, which is for reuse, repair, and recycling services, but just within textile services in Berlin. Beyond this, something that we shouldn't ignore is something as simple as closing the lights and the heating in your space, to share the tools, space, and other resources with others, and approach other people to share their tool space and resources with you is also part of the change. All of these questions and considerations are good to take in from the start of a project and to be aware of this throughout, of course. So many of these approaches are already employed in the art world and by many artists, like repurposing whole elements of parts or parts of elements, like using organic, compostable materials, and also working with material awareness and social aspects, like mobile infrastructures that has many possibilities and can be repurposed and reused, and hereby challenging the structures of the existing spaces and the need to make temporary structures. Not creating waste and making something where everything can be repurposed while being their own structures in a space. And then, of course, there's like the next level with social projects that have circularity and ecology at its core. Every individual and institution in the arts and culture scene of Berlin can expand on the 4Rs. With concepts like retooling, repurposing, reframing, rediscovering, and please find new strategies. By doing so, we can actively create new and more sustainable structures, infrastructures, and in that sense, institutions in the arts and in culture. And by applying the principles in circular economy, when they make sense, of course, can become a means of disrupting the current systems and creating resistance. I hope that this presentation could be of inspiration. I wish you all the best of luck with everything. And yeah, please leave comments and questions.
Great. Thank you so much, Sandra. I really appreciate the language that you use and the approach that you have. I have the feeling that I have to rethink my own vocabulary when it comes to these topics. And once again, I think that you're totally right that reaching out to people, to organizations to see what materials they might have left over, in my own experience, has been a lot more successful than one might think. I think oftentimes organizations are also hoping internally to reuse or to donate or to somehow make use of the materials that they have left over. They just don't know how to go about doing it. So one question that I have, and I hope it's not too complex of a question, you touched on capitalism in your talk, which really interested me. And I was wondering what your feelings are towards the system of capitalism. Is this something that you think needs to be dismantled completely? Are capitalist and consumer approaches, or do you think that there's a way for sort of, new approaches and consumer behaviors to survive together?
Mm-hmm. That's a really good question, and it's something that I'm like struggling with all the time, because on one side I want everything to be a revolution and completely change and be based on different new ideals and values, but at the same time we are all completely embedded in these infrastructures, right? We have our ways of going about our daily lives, our shopping, how we earn our money, the jobs we have, like everything is entangled in consumption. And consumption of culture is also a way of consuming. So rethinking society, there are a lot of really interesting approaches that I think go together with more sustainability, like citizen wages, rethinking work, rethinking time, and also challenging those models of time, right? Because we're all in this more or less like tyranny of time with jobs and everything. So getting out of the hamster wheel is also a strategy for sure. But yeah, like we shouldn't undermine the small reformist approaches and things that we can do. So rethinking materials, rethinking where we get them. Don't jump into like these traps of quick solutions, buying stuff on Amazon. Like, look at the neighborhood. What are the resources around me? Ask. This like post-corona time, it's so like based on anxiety to approach people, as you also talked with Kim about. But actually, a lot of people have stuff around that can be implemented and be helpful. And we might have to challenge our aesthetics a little bit, like using thinking structures. Can it be reused wood? Can it be Euro pallets that are waste anyway, or like boxes from bottles or something else? But I think trying to like the arts have like such a big possibility of influence with this, right? Rethinking aesthetics and rethinking infrastructures and materials, and introducing this in a very interesting and inspirational new way, and playing a bit more around with it. Yeah.
Sure. Within the context of the Berlin Art Prize, we've also, before the exhibitions, found materials on there such as lights, at a fraction of the cost that we might be paying for them new. And then after the exhibitions, we've also put things on groups like Free Your Stuff. And it's been fantastic because then you actually have somebody who really wants it, who comes to pick it up, when it's these smaller things that might already be built in some way. It's great to see what people in Berlin can use them for as in a second way.
Yeah,
Um,
totally.
yeah. So where does the name A New Kind of Blue was something that a design studio that you've actually established during Corona, and does the name have significance?
It comes from a project called New Blue, and that works with recycling fibers from denim. And when you do that, they keep the color from the original denim that is used. But it's a model where the fibers can be turned into a new material and be turned into new garments and then be reintroduced into the system. So in that sense, those fibers are never wasted. You can continuously make garments out of them when they're worn and torn. And I worked together with Tim van der Loo, that's a material and product designer, and he came up with the idea of a new blue as his master thesis project in B.Sc in the Kunsthochschule there. And we wanted to make a design studio where we made a bigger portfolio and did like different approaches with recycled textiles. And a new kind of blue also refers to the blue economy. So that's also circular economy. But yeah, we wanted a broader umbrella name.
And can you define for me what a techno-anthropologist is?
Yeah, it's a study you can study in Copenhagen and in north of Denmark as well. It's really nice because it's very project oriented. So it's taking the methodologies of anthropology, but without digging so deep into where anthropology started, but more thinking how can we use these methods and methodologies to inform design processes. So that means always thinking people and how we live our lives into designing products, which is like, going back to your first question, designing new and differently from the beginning has such a bigger impact, and it's also creating a radical change. There's a lot of companies struggling at the moment trying to like come in and introduce new ideas, but it's always like on top of something that's already, a bit broken from the beginning, already stuck in the last century. So moving into a more circular economy is also thinking design differently from the beginning. And I think like using anthropological qualitative methods. It doesn't have to be anthropology, it can also be a lot of other fields. Is really helpful in that sense.
Fantastic. I don't know if anybody from the audience has any questions. I know it's a lot of new terms and new ideas. So if I don't see any pop up, I'm going to assume not. But I'm going to link to your site, and as well, you sent me the resources, which we'll be sharing on the website within the coming week as we upload all of them from the past 2 days of talks. Thank you, and
Amazing.
I hope we have a chance to work together again soon in the future. And I really appreciate the time that you've taken today.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me. And it's so cool and important that you're making this platform. And I'm looking forward to see where it's going.
Yeah, me too. Thank you.